Another topic that caught my attention this week was when watching Prime Minister's questions, the Conservative MP for Don Valley, Nick Fletcher, called on the Prime Minister to introduce a Minister for Men. The position for Minister for Women was created by former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair as a means of prioritising women's issues across government. So I thought it was only right to ask in our cultural segment, is it time for a Minister for Men? I'm joined by feminist activist and writer Jean Hatchet and Mike Buchanan, the leader of the political party Justice for Men and Boys and the women who love them. Jean, can I start with you, please? What do you think of this idea? Do you think it's time for men to receive a little bit more priority in government?
I'm sure I'm here to say no and eye roll and all of those things, but I think at the moment there's a really crucial thing at the centre of this before we even discuss whether there can be a Minister for Men, and that's the question, what is a man? Because we're currently being put under, we're seeing politicians put under pressure to define what a woman is, but no one's actually asking what a man is, and until we sort that question we can't really go much further. I think it's important that we address the issues for men, male suicide, for example, which is at a terrible high and significantly higher than for women. I acknowledge that. I have concern for that. But we also have to acknowledge the issue with men. And, we have a real issue with men murdering people, but specifically men murdering women. There's a rape conviction rate of less than 1% in this country. And so we have a high proportion of men who are raping women. So I don't want to go down that traditional feminist route of let's just, when we're addressed with this issue of a Minister for Men, just smash into men. I think, there are issues there to be addressed. But when we're talking about this, we've also got to look at why certain things can't happen that would solve issues for men around this question of what a man is. And so if you've got the case that it is unsafe for men to go into male space, then if they are wearing a dress or lipstick, for example, why is that impossible? Why must they then seek refuge with female people in female space? And I think, there are some issues right at the heart of this with this kind of gender identity ideology, which pose questions for both men and women. But until we can sort that question, we really can't talk about a Minister for Men because we don't know what men are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental point. Mike, I'm assuming that you're a bloke, but how do you actually think we should go about this idea of a Minister for Men?
Well, I mean, for a start, I've never heard such complete nonsense as I've just heard, even from a feminist. Should there be a Minister for Men? Of course there should. The idea of having a Minister for Women, and by the way, there are three ministers. There's a Minister for Women and Equalities, a Minister for Women, and a Minister for Equalities. Jobs for the girls or what? I mean, talk about non-jobs. But there are so many areas where men's rights are assaulted, and I'm very pleased to be speaking with a woman whose website tells me that she is very interested in men's violence against women. Nothing on there at all that I could see about women's violence against men. And I can tell you, I'd be happy to read out a few sentences which show that intimate partner violence in heterosexual couples, in the majority of those couples, the violence is mutual. Okay, so sometimes the man starts, sometimes the woman does. But in the 40% or so, where the violence is one way, always one way, the perpetrator is twice as likely to be the woman as the man, and the victim twice as likely to be the man as the woman. And this has been known for decades. And,
so, Mike,
the best place
in your opinion, this is long overdue then? We should have done this years ago?
Yes, I mean, to have a minister for women makes about as much sense as having a minister for rich people. Women and girls are already some of the most privileged human beings ever to walk the planet. The idea that they need specific ministers is absurd. And the reason it's so difficult to get a minister for men is that would put a focus on all the many disadvantages and human rights violations that men have in this country.
Right, yeah. I mean, Mike, I don't think Jean disagreed with some of the points there about the fact that men are facing a higher suicide rate, for example. Jean raised that herself. But Jean, it must be quite something to hear from Mike there that women are the most privileged beings to walk the earth, given that right now, I think, as you rightly point out, women risk being erased from the national picture altogether.
Absolute nonsense.
I'd let Jean come back on that, and you can have your word.
I think I didn't know I was going to be speaking against Mike, which is why I've laughed pretty much through the whole of his segment. And it's kind of it's difficult to respond to that kind of viewpoint because, as I said, I'm very, very sympathetic to some of the issues facing men, like the largest cancer statistics in this country are breast cancer, but the second is prostate cancer. And clearly we have to address issues. I don't think it is, but, you know, I really can't. I can't really debate with somebody who is statistically inept, and I find that, you know, a bit of an insult to me because some of those statistics are being manipulated by Mike, and he's done that for many years now, but he's become a little bit of a laughingstock amongst most people. So, you know, 95% of perpetrators of domestic violence in jail are male. It's as simple as that. You cannot deny those figures. So I tried not to, you know, drag it into that realm, but Mike has. So, you know, his statistics are inaccurate. But I really think, you know, when he's talking about nonsense, what I would ask Mike, if he wants a minister for men, and I haven't said I don't want a minister for men, what I've said is what they perhaps ought to address, as well as, you know, some of the issues put forward by Nick Fletcher. I'd like to know, could then a person with a vagina or a female person be a minister for men, in Mike's view?
Yeah, well, Mike, what do you make of that? Because if we did have a minister for men, I wonder what you think the key role should be. What should it entail?
Jean has just raised an excellent area. There's never been a person of penis as a minister for women, has there? That's strange, isn't it? But to talk, prostate cancer has killed more men.
Currently, it could happen.
I tried not to interrupt. Prostate cancer has killed more men in this country than breast cancer has killed women for 2 or 3 years. But the point here, and it absolutely illustrates why we need a minister for men, is that there is no national screening program for prostate cancer. There are 2 screening programs for women-specific cancers, none for men.
I think, Jean, your view, Jean, on that is very much you're sympathetic to those arguments, aren't you? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Can I point out that I suffer from ovarian cancer? So, you know, I nearly died. So I'd have sympathetic with either a male or a female suffering cancer, and would like equity of access to healthcare for both those issues. Why would I not? But the point is that we are being asked to refer to women with ovaries not as women, that we're being told that it's not okay to say the word womb and woman as a thing. And you know, I know this sounds like I'm going off on a tangent, but when you're talking about issues affecting men, then we're being asked to refer to ourselves as people with front holes. And,
horrible. You
know, this is not okay. And really, if we are targeting men's health issues, then why is that question never being asked of men, whether it's uncomfortable for them to be asked whether they can be pregnant or not? So there's got to be this real... We as feminists know, unless you address the question, what is a woman, you cannot have any rights to
Well, speaking of that, Jean, speaking of that, another story that caught my eye today was concerning the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Angela Rayner. She has condemned what she says is sexist and misogynistic article, a Mail on Sunday article, which claimed that Tory MPs have accused her of a basic instinct ploy, Sharon Stone-esque, to distract Boris Johnson by crossing and uncrossing her legs during debates. This post has received massive backlash. The Prime Minister's got involved and says that he deplores the misogyny directed at Angela Rayner anonymously through this article. Jean, is this an example of women facing misogyny today, and Mike just needs to get behind you because actually misogyny is still happening, clearly?
Mike's never going to acknowledge that. And, you know, like I say, I don't really... I don't expect Mike to ever change his views or take any kind of rational or balanced viewpoint on this. That's not happened over the last many years that he's been trying.
Well, what do you make of this article then? Were you personally offended by this? The fact that the Mail ran this?
I heartily condemn that attitude amongst the male Tory MPs that have tried to say that that's the case. I think, Angela Rayner is being treated appallingly there. I think, though, at the same time, that maybe this is Angela needing to recognise exactly what being female is and what that entails, because she's one of the proponents of the fact that trans women are women. Well, this is not happening to trans women. This is happening to a female person because of sex. And yeah, there's a deep misogyny there. There's a deep misogyny in the way that she's been represented as being less intelligent than Boris Johnson, because she would need to resort to feminine wiles, if you like, to advocate her points or her politics. And so that would never happen to a man.
Right.
And also,
Mike, you answer that then. That would never happen to a man. This wouldn't happen to a male politician. They wouldn't see this sort of post in the Mail on Sunday about them, would they?
Darren, you have allowed Jean to completely derail a discussion about a Minister for Men by their current pet obsession. I could name 16 areas where the human rights of men and boys in the UK today are assaulted. I would very much like to hear, without talking about trans women, I'd very much like Jean to tell me areas where the human rights of women and girls in Britain today are assaulted.
So, Mike, did you not think that article about Angela Rayner was misogynistic in any way, shape or form?
I think people see misogyny everywhere. It is actually very rare, whereas misandry, the hatred of men and boys, is everywhere. And radical feminists like Jean, are the great exemplars of that. So I wonder, Jean, can you tell me some areas? I can give you 16 areas in a few seconds where the human rights of men and boys are assaulted by the state today, almost always to advantage women. Can you tell me any areas where, without talking about trans women, where the human rights of women and girls today are assaulted?
Okay, so as I've said before, we have a current rate where women are raped at a rate of about 78,000 to 80,000 a year.
Absolute
and we've
rubbish.
got you, sorry.
Rubbish.
And
70,
so
I'd like to show your viewers.
Mike, you asked Jean a question, so you've got to let her answer the question.
Can I speak? So we've got women murdered at a rate of 1 every 3 days by men. We've got women raped by a current or former partner once every 4 days. We've got women who are systematically, failed by the CPS. That is a state institution, Mike. That is working for the state. Such that we've got a conviction rate of less than 1%. So how can you then tell me, I am absolutely on board with you discussing the issues that you want to discuss, but you have to acknowledge that women are suffering really quite serious consequences of male violence. And if you're talking about Nick Fletcher, who is a close colleague of Philip Davis, who filibustered a bill in 2017, he spoke for 90 minutes to prevent advances for women.
We're going to have to leave it there, folks, but this debate could rumble on and on. But that was Jean Hatchet, the feminist activist and writer, and Mike Buchanan, leader of the political party Justice for Men and Boys.
Can I just
Thank you very much for your time. Now, plenty more to come this afternoon on Real Britain.